The Autism Conspiracy, Chapter 5, Part 1. While my family was away, I spent most of my time after work at home, so I dove into autism research. In the past, I'd done extensive research on artificial insemination, donor banks, and donor offspring, which kept leading me back to the subject of population control and eugenics. My research had shed light into some dark areas of history, and I certainly wasn't pleased to find them illuminated. My life and my past had direct links to this dark history that I hadn't wanted to think about for very long. But now, with my son's diagnosis of autism, I'd returned doing heavy research. And I was also back to finding dark information that troubled me. It brought me back to the same feeling of disillusionment that I'd experienced when learning troubling information surrounding artificial insemination and sterilization, two related aspects of the eugenics history of the United States, which were both a part of my dad's life and mine. My origin was unusual, and for a long time I struggled with the potential implications of it. Back in the 1980s, with no internet, there wasn't as much information available about these topics unless you spent time in a library, which I did. I felt as I'd been part of some strange experiment that fell outside the norms of nature and society. Did it make me different in some fundamental way? I felt that if I could know my donor father, it would answer a deep yearning inside of my soul. I knew that I would need to pursue this search for my shadow father, a man whose DNA was replicated within me, connecting me forever to his family bloodline. When I was 28 years old, my mother informed me that I was a result of donor insemination and that my dad was not my real father. Because my dad had been unable to have children, she has chosen this artificial insemination procedure. It was a secret that they had kept hidden from everyone they knew. It was during a time when the procedure was relatively unknown, in the placid days of the mid-1950s. The 1950s era upheld family life as the epitome of achievement. The post-World War II times were prosperous and carefree, so people were full of hope and optimism for the future. Technology was advancing quickly in all industries, and America was becoming a very prosperous country. The USA was well known as a bastion of freedom, democracy, and the land of opportunity. The baby boom began with young couples getting married in droves and starting to have families while still in their young 20s. In general, fathers went off to work while mothers stayed home to tend the details of domestic life. Motherhood was a prized status, and doing well was the theme behind mass media messages of the times. Child-rearing advice and good motherhood was all the rage, so women would study magazines and newspapers for tips and recipes, sharing them with each other during play dates and park outings. The blissful facade of the happy family was born, and it was in constant promotion by the media, TV commercials, depicting young wives in dresses and high heels, making dinner, vacuuming effortlessly, using the latest newfangled appliance to make their chores easier. Women were encouraged to be proud of their home and their children. My mother was no exception to the times. She wanted children, an entire family of multiple children, if she could have her way. After she learned that my dad couldn't produce children, she took matters into her own hands and arranged for the creation of a child without the direct involvement of my dad. Harry, my father, agreed, but he must have certainly felt remorse when he watched his wife leave for the day to have the procedure done. He stayed home and waited for his wife to come back, knowing she hoped to become pregnant with another man's child. He ultimately didn't object or try to stop her, as she had made it clear that she had a right to do whatever was necessary to create more children. He felt that it was his fault that they weren't able to have children. The doctor told my mother that the donor father was a good match. He was supposed to be similar in coloring and stature to my dad. My dad was very short and had a dark complexion and dark hair. I was born healthy and strong, blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and soon to be taller than my father. My mother spent several years fully immersing and doting on me and setting me up a family household. My early years were wonderful. Being pampered by two devoted parents, I was very lucky. We didn't have much money, but my mother always seemed to find a way to give me the extra toys and treats. I didn't realize that my dad's hard-earned money was never going to be enough to cover my mother's growing need to purchase more items. My dad was away at work more than often, so I looked forward to Sundays when I could see him for a while. I looked up to my dad. He represented the dependable, resilient spirit of true America, hard-working and capable. I admired his physical strength and would often try to emulate his slow, agile stride. Whenever I did something new, he would often say proudly, "That's my boy." I wanted to please him, but he wasn't around much. He was often tired, falling asleep while sitting in a chair, his eyes trying to stay open so he could join in the family evenings for a few minutes longer. His soft snores would soon reverberate through the house. He embodied the same steady values for the duration of his life, but he clearly gave it to us all for his young family. He worked hard to please his wife, to care for me, and I knew he loved me very much.